Oh man, the hood's up on my daily, so we got to get to work. So today's Sunday, and I have never made a video of my daily actually. So this is a 2001 Chevy Suburban, 4-wheel drive. Man, I love this truck. And I had to buy it about 4 or 5 months ago because I had my son, Carson, and I love him to death. And I just got married too, so yeah. Big wins this year, like leveling up. But besides that, I had to buy this truck because I needed to have a back seat. So I bought it, and when I went to go buy this truck, I bought it for $2 grand, and I'll make a video on like, you know, how sweet of a deal I got this truck for. When I bought it, the guy was like, well, after about 2 or 3 days, the battery dies. And I was like, what's up with that? And he's like, well, somebody told me at the mechanic shop to pull this fuse out. And it's for the factory amp. And it's in, well, I'm blocking the view, but it's right there. And what happens is, like, I went to go pull this thing out and spark shot. Which every time I do this, it never does it on camera. But then I don't do it on camera and then it does it. But I could have sworn. I was like, man, I'm seeing sparks go from one side to the other side of the fuse. So I was like, okay, definitely that's not right. So I'm thinking what's happening is, like, these trucks are notorious for having the factory amps just be junk. So what I think is happening is something in the stereo is draining my battery, because it takes about a day and a half. So it's anywhere between 24 hours and 36 hours to where this thing will be almost dead and won't start, or it'll be just completely dead. And I was trying to think of it. I'm like, well, it would have to be something semi-small. Like, I have no interior lights on. Like, I can't see anything visually being on as I, like, go and I shut my truck up and I go to, like, go home. I'm like, what the heck is up with that? So I'm going to go and check that out. And so what I'm probably going to do is, just since I'm here, I don't like the way that this truck's wired because I'd like to have a sub and an amp in the back. So I'm going to just rewire the whole stereo today. And so that's not going to be fun. Now, I've been putting this off for, like, well, basically since I've had the truck, 4.5, 5 months. So yeah, I'm going to get to it. So yeah, you'll definitely see maybe a video or two on how all this goes. So hopefully it's not too stressful. So within 10 minutes, I'm pretty sure I found out the main cause of why my battery is not wanting to stay charged for more than a day. I just pulled the electrical tape off of this wire and that wire. And so this one is still connected to itself, it's just missing the skin. And then this one, I don't know what these even go for yet. I haven't even gotten that far. But this one has a wire that's not connected to anything. And it's just spun on to this other one. So it's this one spun on to that one, and that one spun on to both of those. And like, that's pretty rigged. But everything else looks pretty fine. Like, all these wires, I know all the speakers work and all the tweeters. So I don't think that I'm even gonna, I'm not sure exactly what I'm gonna do yet, but yeah, that's not good. That could be causing it. So yeah, 10 minutes in and I'm already finding problems. So I bought this truck about 4 or 5 months ago, and you never know what you're gonna find buying a used car. And even back behind panels, you never know. I pulled this panel off to get to the factory sub because I wanted to disconnect that. And you'll figure out what I'm talking about when I get back up to the front of the truck. And I've been trying to find the factory amp, and I thought maybe it was somewhere back behind this panel. And I pulled off this cover where it says lift for jack tools. And there was a factory jack and all the stuff, but I was like, you know what? I'm not even gonna use that because this has a 3-inch lift and 35s, and I just don't think it's gonna lift it up high enough to actually be able to use it and actually work. But also I found a set of jumper cables. I had a pair go bad like about a month ago, which never happens, but it happened to me. And also I found a serpentine belt, which is like a super score. I'm not even sure if this has ever been used or not, but mine on my truck squeaks really bad, and so I might be changing that out here in the next month or two. So here's what's going on with my stereo. So this stereo with that fuse in sends power to the stereo, and then also sends power to all the speakers. When you pull that factory the factory amp fuse out, it has power to the head unit but not to the speakers, and I'm guessing not to the factory amp. So what's interesting about this is, I think what's going on is my factory amp is bad or wired up wrong, Because if you take this fuse, where's that fuse? There's that fuse. And you put it in there, you can hear the stereo speakers kick on and off. Right? So that's probably okay or not okay, depending on if the factory amp is good or not. Because I'm thinking what's going on is this thing will stay charged all throughout the night, but if I don't drive this truck for like 2 days, it won't start. It's completely dead. So what I think is going on is my stereo speakers are staying on, and you would never know that they're actually on, because if you put that fuse in, you'll hear it go click, right? But if you go and you put the key on and all that stuff, you never hear the speakers like click on or click off or anything like that. You just don't know. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go old school with it. Every single car except this truck, it's always been wired up old school, where you don't have a factory amp and crap like that. It's just wiring from the head unit to the speakers. So this one has wiring going from the head unit to the factory amp to the speakers. So I'm going to bypass that completely and just go from the head unit and then go get wiring and go from the head unit to each speaker. Left, right, back, all that. So it's going to take forever, but I've been wanting to do that anyways, because I would like to put a sub in this truck one day, and I only know how to hook up a sub that way. And with all this and everything and trying to like keep the factory amp in here and all that stuff, it's just, I can't even find the factory amp. It says on the forums, in the books, on a Haynes manual, it's in the front passenger side, back behind the firewall and all that stuff, and I can't even find it. And I thought maybe it would be back there, but it's not. So forget that thing. Just gonna bypass it and just go real old school, because I know old school. I don't know even anything up to 2001. It's freaking crazy. But yeah, we'll go and start doing that and see if that fixes it.